Welcome to my American History Notes, where I discuss conclusions that I've drawn from studying American history. And you won't agree with some of my conclusions, maybe none of them, but you should at least know about the things I'm talking about. And I hope you watch some of the previous episodes. So we're finishing up with the War of the American Revolution. The war at sea was noteworthy in the exploits of John Paul Jones, who terrorized British shipping aboard his USS Ranger, even assaulting a port on England's coast. On September 23rd, 1779, he defeated the British ship Serapis in a 42-gun converted merchant ship called the Bonhomme Richard in one of the most famous sea battles in history, where, as his flaming ship was sinking, he answered the British Captain Prescott's call to surrender with the immortal words, "I have not yet begun to fight." Jones amazingly won the battle after all. It moved his crew to the Serapis, excuse me, bringing his prize to the Netherlands. Spain operated against the British in the south and west, with Bernardo de Galvez taking Baton Rouge and Natchez. He then captured Mobile and even sent an officer to raid into Michigan, capturing Fort Joseph on Lake Michigan. Finally, on March 10th of 1781, he took Fort George near Pensacola. 1780 was a year of American disasters, even though Russia, officially neutral under Catherine II, declared that her navy would protect itself against all belligerents, thereby threatening England's blockade of French and Spanish supply to the U.S. Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, Prussia, Portugal, Austria, and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies of Naples joined the stance against Britain. But on September 21st, 1780, the American hero, Benedict Arnold, was revealed to be a traitor when his plans to deliver his command of West Point, the guardian to the Hudson Valley, to the British were taken with the capture of British Major John Andre. Andre was hanged as a spy while Arnold received a brigadier general's commission in the British Army and cash. On December 20th, England declared war on the Netherlands. Currency depreciation and a lack of supplies resulted in several mutinies of American troops at West Point, Morristown, New Jersey, 3 times, and Fort Stanwix. So there were mutinies at those places. Washington blockaded New York, but the British took Charleston. Lord Cornwallis's brutality, particularly the atrocities committed by Sir Banastar Tarleton's Tory cavalry, led to a heightened guerrilla war led by Francis Marion, the quote, Swamp Fox, Thomas Sumter, and Andrew Pickens. Washington sent Brigadier General Johann de Kalb 900 Continentals to South Carolina, and Congress put Horatio Gates in command of the Southern Department of Washington, Southern Department, independent of Washington. At the Battle of Camden on August 16, 1780, DeKalb was crushed. Congress then returned all control to Washington, who appointed Nathaniel Greene his right arm to command in the South. At the Battle of Kings Mountain, American Colonels Isaac Shelby and Richard Campbell demolished British Colonel Patrick Ferguson's force on October 7th. The only participant in this battle on either side who wasn't American was Colonel Ferguson. There were Tories versus Patriots. Cornwallis abandoned his proposed invasion of North Carolina. Greene led his poorly fed and clothed American soldiers, divided under General Daniel Morgan, against an also mistakenly divided force of Cornwallis under Tarleton and General Leslie at the Battle of the Cowpens on January 17, 1781. Tarleton was defeated by Morgan in one of the most brilliant tactical operations ever fought on American soil, according to military historians. However, on March 15th, Cornwallis defeated Greene in a costly battle for the British at the Guilford Courthouse. Cornwallis realized he could not hold Georgia and the Carolinas, so he retreated into Virginia. With many skirmishes and much maneuvering around Virginia, Cornwallis finally ended up in Yorktown on August 4th, 1781, and Washington marched south on August 21st. French Admiral de Grasse moved off Yorktown to blockade the British supply, and at the Battle of the Capes between September 5th to the 9th, 1781, he defeated the British, who sailed away, leaving Cornwallis to his fate. With the arrival of French troops, no hope for resupply, and a determined Washington against him, Cornwallis surrendered on October the 19th, 1781. Britain sued for peace after Lord North's ministry collapsed on March 20th of 1782. The Treaty of Paris was signed on November 30th, 1782. Sporadic fighting had continued after Cornwallis's surrender, and people kept dying, ships were sunk, and battles fought, but on April 15th, 1783, Congress ratified the treaty acknowledging American independence, and the war officially ended, and the Continental Army, never properly supplied, manned, or funded, was disbanded immediately, an American tradition that continued for several wars. Next, we're going to discuss Confederation to Constitution. And I hope that this will spur you to dig into some studies, get deeper than I have. This is just a survey right on the surface. There's a lot of cool things to talk about Yorktown and all of the events like in strategy, Nathaniel Greene in Washington uh, deciding to keep the army intact and give up territory to defeat the British, which won, which unfortunately for the South, the Confederate leadership in the coming Civil War wanted to hold territory, and only Joe Johnston, who Grant said would have beaten the North, wanted to preserve the army and keep moving it. And for some reason, military historians don't like Joe Johnston, and yet he was the one that Grant and Sherman said could beat them. So, but that's another story. We'll get to that later on. Thank you for watching.